haters gon' hate, you know they're shady. You're the only one that I call baby. Baby.
What's up, beautiful people? It's your host, Marlon Favorite. It's Inside the Trenches podcast, brought to you guys by Small Sliders, 1635 Barataria Boulevard, Montero. Talk to me now. Having ourselves a good time here. New Orleans Talk Network, ESPN NOLA. So much great stuff happening in the world of sports, and you know we enjoy every second of it. So last night's show, we were at UPT, and it's just like yesterday was the day for news. We got the news from the Saints signing Chase Young, which we're going to talk about in this segment. Then a couple moves were made around the league, which we will get into later on this hour. But I want to start with Chase Young, new home for him down here in New Orleans. The question is, how will Chase Young do? So he did address the media right maybe a couple of hours after he got signed. Of course, they had questions about the injuries, but one of the questions that I was looking for to get asked, and he answered it, was why New Orleans? Why here? What about this fit that worked out so well for you? So let's take a listen to Chase Young and we'll talk about it.
Chase. Appealed to you?
Yeah, we have great defense, Tyron, Cam, Carl, Pete, DeMario. I feel like it's weapons all over the field. My goal is just going to be the best Chase Young that I can be. And, I definitely, plan to add a good piece to be a part of this defense.
Chase, what was kind of your process of picking your spot? Were you kind of studying everybody and trying to make sure you found the best fit for you? And if so, what made New Orleans the best fit for you?
Yeah, just the best fit is, I feel like it's very family oriented. Even just meeting the whole coaching staff, everybody was family oriented. I can tell just the workspace has great energy.
So that was Chase Young. New Orleans Saints did open up for the media. So a couple of our members of the media were asking specific questions to him. But those two stuck out to me. But the first one, when he got into the different fits, so working with DeMario, being able to work on the defensive line with Cam Jordan and Carl Granderson, he saw where there was compliments. A couple of other questions that they asked him about was being able to play in the Super Bowl and what was that like playing for the San Francisco 49ers. And he was very candid about that experience and the grind that it took to get there. And that's what I want to focus on before we get into the fit. It is super hard to make it to the Super Bowl, pun intended. It's a tough process to make it to the Super Bowl. So that's one of those little bitty incentives to having Chase Young. He has experience now going deep into the playoffs. It's a different preparation in regards to playing in the playoffs, let alone deep going to the Super Bowl. Taking a quick look at Chase Young over the past couple of years, and this where a lot of questions were with some of the folks with the signing. I like it because I see the kid's potential. I understand how well he played in college. We forget that Chase Young was someone who almost went before Joe Burrow, the best quarterback in that draft of 2020. Ended up, and we'll look at his stats over the time. Coming into the league, he showed up as advertised. His first year with Washington, he made it to the Pro Bowl. He had 7.5 sacks, 32 solo tackles, 12 of them were assists. That was big for a defensive lineman. And then, of course, Chase went into the seasons of 2021 and 2022. Those weren't his best seasons in 2021. He had a 1.5 sack. He was injured 2022 most of the season, so he wasn't productive. And then in 2023, he went back to Washington, but they ended up trading him to San Francisco. So at that point, San Francisco playing at a very high level, and you look at one key piece missing. And in this case, for them, it was Chase Young. Chase didn't start right away either. He started in certain packages. They used him a lot for pass rush. He was able to get 5 sacks, so he was having a productive season. So he had 7.5 sacks last season. So the only issue for him was the 2022 season not being able to be healthy. That was the big deal with Chase Young. So I look at a guy that really fits this New Orleans defense in a number of ways of areas of need. One fit in particular is being able to not only add help on third down, but you also put yourself in a position for the yards that are, how could I explain this easier? You put yourself, give you an example. It was a couple of times last year where, I'm going to just use the Green Bay game for the Saints. If we could have got Jordan Love down more, let's say, for instance, 3 or 4 sacks on him in that game, that would have made the difference in that game. We lose that game by 1 point. So I do understand bringing him in for that. Cam Jordan hasn't been as productive in recent years as he's been towards the middle of his time here with New Orleans. I understand that. I do understand that you have a guy that's now been in the league since 2011, and he's been productive. What I've liked about Cam in 2022, 2021, and even a little bit of 2020 season, he'll start the season off slow, but when you really need him, he'll get into those double-digit sacks. So I do think Chase Young complements Cam and the rest of that defense. Another big question I know a lot of folks have, and we have it here as well, what does this mean for the starting rotation? I know on ourlads.com, they have Chase Young as a starter and Cam as second string. Do y'all think that's something that might potentially happen? Is this a battle in training camp between Cam and Chase? Or is this more of a role thing for Chase? You'll add depth to the depth chart, work into the packages where we have a jet package. Just to explain to our viewers what a jet package is. The jet package is when you have all your defensive ends on the field for pass rush. So this is what my man CL typically talks about, my co-host CL. He said, I'm going to bump Cam on the inside. That's not an every down thing. Cam is a defensive end. He's going to get a gold jacket or a candidate to be a Hall of Famer based off of what he's able to do at the defensive end position as a run stopper. And in addition, as a run stopper, being able to add pass rush. Now, this is a critical season for Cam Jordan. I do think that he needs to have at least 8.5 to 11 sacks before the Saints start looking in a full direction. This is a 1-year deal with Chase Young. This could potentially turn into a 3-year contract with Chase Young in 2025, 26, and 27. They want to see, Dennis Allen and his staff want to be able to see not only how well he meshes in the locker room, but they also want to take a solid look at how well he's able to fit into their system, particularly on third down. If Chase Young, this reminds me of if you look at the Saints in 2012, 2013, when you had a younger Cam and you had Junior Gillette coming off of the edge, them boys had like 13, 14 sacks apiece. So if you look at it from that regard and that perspective, they could have that potential production at the defensive end position here in New Orleans. Carl Granderson had 8.5 sacks last year. Cam, he had 2.5 sacks, but DeMario had 6. You bring in a guy like Willie Gay who can also contribute as a pass rusher when needed, when you won't send 5 rushers, or in some cases, coaches may go cover 0 and rush 6 guys. You can do more because you have more guys that can get home. I think that is important as well. The big question is, how will he do in this system? I think he's going to do great. I do think this is one of the strong points of New Orleans in terms of scheme. They still run a 4-3, 4 down linemen. They have athletic linebackers. You have Pete Warner when healthy. He leads the league in tackles. DeMario went to his 2nd Pro Bowl. I mean, for the Saints, it's just up if they could continue to build young but old. What you mean young but old? Young but old is you have a guy like Chase Young. He's been in the league now for 4 years. He's still relatively young, but he understands the system. He was a starter and a dominant player at Washington, had some consistent seasons at the beginning, but then he gets hurt in 2022. And then the production is still somewhat there in Washington, but Washington wants, obviously, to add more value to their team in the draft. And then also, it's something that San Francisco needed. I think it was more about what San Francisco needed more than anything else. So big ups to the Saints for bringing in a guy like Chase Young. I do think he makes this defense better. You have another solid edge rusher. And I see New Orleans taking those chess pieces and moving them one by one, not making a lot of noise early on in free agency, but this was definitely a noise move right here. It's Inside the Trenches podcast. It's your host, Marlon Big Fave Favorite, right? Y'all make sure y'all follow me at Big Fave 504 on Instagram or X. I was about to say Twitter. And then y'all be sure to make y'all way this Friday. Well, this Friday we won't be there, but we will be there the following Friday. But you need to get there for lunch. 1635 Barry Boulevard in Montero. You can't miss the big orange can. It's right there, baby. It's Inside the Trenches podcast. We'll be right back. New Orleans Talk Network, baby. ESPN New Orleans.
Living life fantastic. All unusual plays. Made me a hustle today. That's why.
Are you a student athlete looking to take your career to the next level? Look no further than Conquer Sports Pros. That's right, Conquer Sports Pros. Our team of experts will get you guys on the right path to your student athlete journey in life. That's right, we have every position in football you need, and we also help out with other sports. At Conquer Sports Pros, you have everything from a list of consultation, training, and also media training. Yeah, that's right, when you take your career to the next level, play college and hopefully pro, you'll get lots of interviews. Call Conquer Sports Pros today. You can reach them at 504-319-6672 or visit marlonfavorite.com for more information. Hello, somebody. Hello, somebody. It's your boy Marlon Big Fave Favorite. And when I'm hungry, I like to make my way to Small Sliders, 1635 Barry Boulevard, Montero, Louisiana. Simple on purpose. When I tell you their burgers are delicious, have some great sauce on them, I'm telling you, when you're just hungry and just need to grab a quick bite, this is the perfect place for you. Small Sliders. The customer service is nice. It's somewhere you can bring the family, hang out and chill, enjoy the atmosphere. Now I'm a big boy, so when I like to take my Small Sliders, I like to get the biggest smalls. Double patties, bacon, cheese, you name it. Just a delicious burger. And I like to top it off with my favorite, the cookies and cream milkshake. There are 3 delicious flavors: milkshake, chocolate, vanilla, and cookies and cream. Small Sliders. Simple on purpose. Y'all come on and slide through, baby. And let them know that you heard about them on Inside the Trenches with your boy Marlon Big Fave Favorite. Watch out there now. Well, hello, it's Marlon Big Fave Favorite with Inside the Trenches podcast. Are you looking for a brand new car? Or you're tired of what you're driving around in? Or you just need wheels? Well, if that's the case, you need to visit Montero Motors, 1512 North Causeway, Metairie, Louisiana. At Montero Motors, our buddy Alberto will get you in a vehicle that fits you that day with no problem. They have vehicles that are pre-owned. You could do a trade-in that day and ride off in something that day. Visit MonteroMotors.com for more information and let them know you heard about them on Inside the Trenches podcast. Hello.
Step Construction is here for you with a brand new offer. We now provide affordable storage sheds. Stop wasting your money on overpriced storage units and portable containers. Step Construction can provide you with a custom shed that will fit your budget and storage needs. So contact Step Construction today at 504-340-5809 for your own personal quote. Let us help you take the next step at Step Construction.
For the radio, from LA to LA to yelling hello, Fave. Welcome back, baby. It's Inside the Trenches podcast. I'm your host, Marlon Big Favorite, and we here live in the New Orleans Talk Network studio, ESPN New Orleans 100.3 FM. I'm excited about my new slot on ESPN New Orleans too, y'all. Starting next Monday, that's the 25th of March. We're going to be on live on the radio 6 to 8 Monday through Friday. Super excited about that. We ran our test runs last night at UPT. Speaking of UPT, Uptown Sports Social, that's who this segment is bringing you. Or that's who's bringing you this segment, should I say. Hello, somebody. I got to flip my words. But, yeah, they're the 6 to 8, Monday through Friday. We'll be there. That's our live spot. The food was off the chain last night. I had the crawfish. We had the corn, potatoes. It was off the chain. I like my crawfish mild, too. It wasn't super spicy, but it was very flavorful. That was really my first time eating crawfish for the crawfish season. Of course, y'all know down here in Louisiana, them prices will skyrocket on the crawfish. Speaking of skyrocket, right? What would you rather? Now, I say skyrocket when I mention this because, this move alone did a lot for these two organizations. So when you look at the grand scheme of things, what would you rather? This segment, we're talking about Chase Young, Bryce Young, and Caleb Williams, and the way that whole deal came about. So if you remember last year, for DJ Moore and the first round pick and all kind of other bells and whistles, Chicago got a lot. They did. They really, I think, won this trade in the long run. So Mike popped up the image. You see Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Darnell Wright. You have Tyreek Stevenson, and then there's a second pick in the 2025 draft, or just Bryce Young. Now, the way NFL memes put this up made it look like this team got way all of this and that, and the other team is put in this position. So some of the questions that we look at when paying attention to how all of this came about and what all had to happen and what didn't happen for things to go. Chicago wins this in the grand scheme of things. If you look at their roster now, even though they did trade Justin Fields over to the Steelers, they still have a solid roster, right? You look at their receiving core now shaped up. You have DJ Moore, talked about that. You have Tyler Scott, which, they may want to still, I'll get to that with the receivers. And when you look at what they were able to get in terms of weapons, DeAndre Swift, I thought that bringing him in, he's not going to save the team, but he does bring an explosive element to that team. And then you look at a credible tight end and Cole Kmet, that'll be huge. So now whoever the next quarterback is has weapons around him. You look at, you got Tyson Bagent right now as the starting quarterback. Well, we all know how that's going to go. So y'all tweet me at BigFave504. I know y'all might be getting this a little later, but I want to know what's your thoughts. We're talking, what would you rather? Would you rather have a young, talented Bryce Young, who arguably was the best quarterback in the 2023 draft last year? So that is credit to him. But then you start thinking about and wondering how interesting it'll be to see Carolina continue to build their roster and put together the key pieces that they need to be successful. Looking at this Carolina roster, they did lose DeAndre Jackson from LSU. Deontay, he probably will rip me right now for saying that. We crack jokes every time we see each other. They did lose Dante Jackson, LSU speedster, played cornerback for LSU, prepped here locally at Riverdale, where he was considered an athlete that he is. But just looking at this roster, it just seems like they need so much support in the receiving core, on the offensive line, which they did address that by bringing in another LSU guy in Damian Lewis out of Seattle. I think he does bring the type of aggressive nature that they need up front. The big blockbuster that they ran with head coach Dave, and that's going with Robert Hunt out of Miami, offensive lineman. He brings that aggressiveness that they needed on the right side. So they are building an offensive line around Bryce Young. We knew with this Carolina team, this was going to go and turn into a long-term thing. Like, this wasn't something that they were going to go to the NFC Championship off of this year. They understood. Was Bryce Young the best choice? At the time, right? And then C.J. Stroud had the year that he had. So we do have to look at it from that perspective as well. When you look at the running backs, now here's why I think this is a quiet need. They may need to look at bringing in a first or second round running back. The reason I say that, because I don't think Hubbard could really take it that, like, he's not even in the third tier of running backs. And then behind him, there's Miles Sanders. Well, he saw a lot of success. Miles Sanders saw a lot of success out at Philly, but we didn't really see that transition over here. They got some more LSU guys, of course. Bador Toyor from LSU, offensive lineman. They got him last year from San Francisco. So I do think that they do have some key pieces. They have Deontay Johnson, talented wide receivers, more than likely going to be their number 2 out of Pittsburgh. We saw where he saw some success at Pittsburgh, was pretty decent. Jonathan Mango out of Mississippi State. You do bring him in as your potential number 1. But I do think, and Terrence, I don't know why Terrence Marshall isn't in the starting lineup, their second-round draft pick out of LSU, but I do expect him to see the ball some. But when you look at Adam Thielen, last year, of course, they didn't have much of an offensive line, but he didn't really put the production up that we're used to seeing out of Adam Thielen. So I do think it is interesting how they're going to continue to shape and build around Bryce Young. What Bryce Young definitely needs is a defense. I mentioned they traded over Dante Jackson to Pittsburgh. You do have Kevin Barryard at the free safety. You do have, look across that defensive line, you got Montez Sweat from Washington, a solid edge rusher. I mean, at one point, I thought Washington was really going to make noise, because we talk about Chase Young. You had him. They had Peyton from Alabama. You had Sweat. So they had a lot of key pieces, but it just didn't quite materialize for them when you look at the way their team is shaping up in Chicago as well. When you look at, and I said I was talking about Carolina, I meant to say I was on Chicago's depth chart. I meant to say Chicago has Kevin Byard and Montez Sweat. That's Chicago that we were talking about, not not Carolina. Sorry about that. I thought, I was like, hold on, they didn't make that move. But here we go. We have Carolina's defense up now. When you look at this Carolina's defense, you have Caleb Von Chasson from LSU as an edge rusher. I thought he was decent for Jacksonville. I can understand where they can use him. Ashawn Robinson, they got him from New York. So you look at this Carolina's team, young, talented players. You still have Derek Brown. He wreaks havoc. So they do have their hands full. But does defensive coordinator Coach Evrio, does he want to run this system as a multi-set system? Is it a system that he wants to maybe move some guys around? It's still out. We still, the verdict is still out on this deal. If y'all just tuning into us, we're just talking about would you rather. Would you rather the situation where Carolina basically put up a boatload to get the first pick to essentially go get Bryce Young, and then Chicago gets DJ Moore, and then they get some futures. They have the first round, 2 first-round picks. My last thought on this, everybody is putting Caleb Williams as the guy. Like, he's going to be Chicago's first pick overall, and then we'll figure out the rest. What about this scenario? What if they're building a team for Jaden Daniels? See, it's a valuable piece with this first pick, right? Because you could trade the first pick, get a later pick in the first round. You already have 9. That could be a potential scenario, but I don't think Jaden Daniels is still going to be on the board. I'm not even thinking 3. Because if Chicago don't go get him, Coach Dan Quinn down in Washington is for sure going to go get him. Here's what I look at. Take out from Cincinnati. You bring Joe Burrow in. You build an offensive line around him. In free agency, eventually you get some guys in for Joe Burrow. He had Joe Mixon at the time. He had Boyd, some weapons in the receiving corps. The next year, they go and get Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So you have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. You have an offensive line. You have a decent defense. At the time they had Trey Henderson. I think that was his first year with them. And they made it to the Super Bowl. LSU, baby. Take the same LSU blueprint. Get Jaden Daniels, whoever's still available, whether it's Malik Neighbors or whether it's Brian Thomas Jr., and you got to go run and get them. I think if Chicago go get them LSU boys, they can make some noise, baby. It's Inside the Trenches podcast. We just done some wishful thinking here. Jaden Daniels, number 1 overall pick. Malik Neighbors, number 9. Or Brian Thomas Jr. I think that's the way Chicago should go. And I'll dig into that a little bit more a couple shows from now. But it's Inside the Trenches podcast, baby. We having ourselves a good time here in hour 1. Don't go anywhere. We're going to go around the league, look at some off-season updates. About to take us a nice little break. We're smooth with it. Inside the Trenches podcast, ESPN New Orleans. Hello, somebody.
'Cause girl, I adore you. Baby, don't you go nowhere. I just need to stop and stare. Taking all your beauty, baby, 'cause you're truly.
Are you a student athlete looking to take your career to the next level? Look no further than Conquer Sports Pros. That's right, Conquer Sports Pros. Our team of experts will get you guys on the right path to your student athlete journey in life. That's right, we have every position in football you need, and we also help out with other sports. At Conquer Sports Pros, you have everything from a list of consultation, training, and also media training. Yeah, that's right. When you take your career to the next level, play college and hopefully pro, you'll get lots of interviews. Call Conquer Sports Pros today. You can reach them at 504-319-6672 or visit marlonfavorite.com for more information. Hello, somebody. Are you looking for your dream home? Well, if that's the case, you need to contact Joe Piccolo at Godwyn Realty, right here in New Orleans. Joe can put you in your dream home right away. Joe Piccolo and the folks over at Godwyn Realty put you in the house that you need. Even if you're looking to invest in some property, they'll do an excellent job with that as well. Contact Joe today at 504-251-8341. Again, that phone number is 504-251-8341. And also contact Joel at joel.godwynrealty.com. No need to dream anymore. Godwyn Realty will put you in the dream house of your reality. Hello, somebody.
It's that boy Fred, host of FanView Podcast. Tune into the NOTN app weekdays, 3:30 for the FanView Podcast. Go to NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com to watch more episodes of FanView Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch.
Listen up. Your customers, our listeners, could be hearing about your business right now. Yeah, right now. Don't miss out on the opportunity to advertise with NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com. Call our business department today at 504-475-4793 to hear about our great rates. NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com. We provide the people, you provide the business.
Hello, somebody. It's Marlon Big Favorite with Inside the Trenches podcast. Do you need a quick car wash? Well, if that's a yes, you need to visit Crown Car Wash, 1336 Stump Boulevard, Gretna, Louisiana, on the West Bank, baby. Crown's the best. You get a spotless wash, nice clean tires, reasonable pricing, and free vacuuming. My favorite part about Crown Car Wash, they open 24/7. That's right, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can visit Crown Car Wash on the West Bank, baby, and let them know you heard about them on Inside the Trenches podcast with Marlon Big Favorite. Watch out there now.
Oh yeah. Deli must have did this beat. West Bank, where you at? Let me get that hand clap. Well, yeah. Come on, let's get it. Big dog, big as a gorilla.
What's happening, beautiful people out there? It's your host, Marlon Big Favorite. It's Inside the Trenches podcast. And we're having ourselves a great evening here at New Orleans Talk Network Studios. We're in the hub, baby. We got great weather here in New Orleans so far. It's a little cool out, but you have to love it. That time in between winter and spring, start seeing the trees get green. I like it. Let's go around the league for a second here. Let's look at some off-season updates. And remember, this segment is brought to you guys by Montero Motors. 1512 North Causeway Boulevard. Make your way over there to Montero Motors. Talk to Alberto. Say, I heard about you on Big Fave's show, Inside the Trenches. Oh, Big Fave sent you over here. Let me get you in the car today. Make your way to Montero Motors. I go. My man Frank went over there. My mom went there. We've been getting a lot of reviews from Montero Motors. So, I see the Saints division rival, Atlanta Falcons. Of course, most of you know, especially if you follow the show, it's all over the sports news. Atlanta signed Kirk Cousins for a boatload of money. So much money to where, he's all right with wearing number 18 instead of 8. Kind of puts me in the whole, my mic started busting out laughing with this one. Kind of puts me in the whole longest yard deal with Adam Sandler. Kind of looked like Burt Reynolds. That uniform right there. Yeah, so apparently he wanted 8, but Kyle Pitts was like, nah. And then even Kyle Pitts was funny about it, too. He was like, well, he might not throw me the ball as much since I didn't want to just give up my number. But, what do you guys think? Is it even a big deal? Does Kirk Cousins look a lot different wearing number 18? Since he's been in the league, he switched numbers before. He was 12 when he first got here with Washington. Of course, he wore 8 out there. So I don't think Kurt's one of those guys, his number doesn't really matter. I could tell you that personally. Like, none of that really matters. He just cares about, rocking his chains and getting his Kurt Cobains on, right? So let's look at this Atlanta Falcons team. Head coach Raheem Morris, been around the league. Guys like him. Offensive coordinator is now Zach Robinson. You have Jimmy Lake as DC and the special team coordinator. You have Marquise Williams. I'm not going to lie, fellas, over here in the studio and for all my viewers, this Atlanta roster is looking good on paper. I ain't front. They're not looking bad on paper. I don't want this to be – and Atlanta, I know I went to the Saints and Atlanta game back in 2017, December 2017, and they still email me like, hey, you're one of our fans, you're one of our biggest fans, right? Nah, I just bought my tickets from your website. I ain't got to keep hitting you up like that. You know what I'm saying? Shouts out to Arthur Blank, though. I interviewed Arthur at the Super Bowl for 2020. Cool cat, man, no lie. I spoke, gave him his props. Hey, man, look, y'all food cheap in the stadium. It was good. Peep this out, Mike. You can get a hot dog, nachos, and a drink for like less than $15. Not bad at all. And then you could get nachos. Let's say, for instance, you want a burger, some candy, and a drink, $20. So I mean, you can't beat that with a stick. But what you can beat with a stick is the ground if we lose to him. But anyway, look, looking at this receiving core, you have Drake London, you have Darnell Mooney from Tulane. They ended up getting him. And you also have Rondell Moore from Arizona. So I think that is a solid receiving core for the most part. You're not just looking at it trying to hit Drake London. Offensive line, you have Jake Matthews. You have Chris Lindstrom. Tight end, which is their 4-target guy. You got Kyle Pitts. We talked about him earlier, the number 8, so he'll still be an 8. He's not wearing 18, so it's like a switcheroo. Justin Jefferson, he had 18. Kirk, whatever. You look at the running backs, Tyler Algier, and then your starting running back, Bijan Robinson, first rounder, 2023. Defensively, David Onyemata, Grady Jarrett on the interior lines. Those are some names you should look for. Caden Ellis. And these moves make sense, right? I know you see David Onyemata and Caden Ellis. I mean, these guys were with the GM Fontenot in New Orleans, Terry Fontenot, when he was in New Orleans. So that connection is always there. Some rumors say that Michael Thomas might end up in Atlanta. Like, those rumors are starting to pick up too, guys. Like, there's not no fugazi with that. Like, we're starting to see more people talk about it, and it's possible. If you look at potential landing spots, you see how some of these receiving cores are shaping up. You may have a scenario where Mike Thomas may end up there. So I think that's interesting when you look at Atlanta. Let's move around the league. The 49ers signed Josh Dobbs to a 1-year deal. I don't have all the facts in front of me, but what's your thoughts on this signing Josh Dobbs? Let me know what you think. I was hoping New Orleans would have went that direction. My co-host was like, hey, Fave, nah, man, you get guys like him, it's going to cost too much. Do you really want to spend that amount of money on a quarterback? If you need him, yeah. I'm spending the money if you need him. All right? I think that could have been whatever. We just going to leave that the way it is, right? But what does this mean for San Francisco? Is this a move that motivates Brock Purdy even more? I mean, how much more motivated you want Brock Purdy to be? I mean, we saw him beat out Jimmy Garoppolo and Trae Young. I said Trae Young. I'm thinking about basketball right now. He's now Trey Lance. I said Trae Young. Trey Lance. You know, he beat out Trey Lance. But I do think when you look at Josh Dobbs, you have a reliable backup. And I know that's what New Orleans was hoping for when we brought this up. Will we have a reliable backup in Josh Dobbs? And, you know, he ended up going there. Now, what does this mean in regards to if something does happen to Brock Purdy with Josh Dobbs? You have a guy that's mobile. He can move. He can throw. He's an SEC guy, so he's a top caliber quarterback. And I think he's a solid number 2, especially when you're dealing with NFL seasons. Let's keep things moving and look at this San Francisco's depth chart a little deeper. So Josh Dobbs, backup quarterback. They still have Brandon Allen and, of course, Brock Purdy. So I think their quarterback room is pretty solid. What are some areas that San Francisco might look at in the draft? Well, for one, I do think they could use another reliable rusher. On the depth chart right now, of course, Nick Bosa, one of the top rushers. They did get Malachi Collins from Houston. That dude can rush the passer. So I think they D-line in. Javon Hargrave, like, they D-line is solid. Leonard Floyd from Buffalo. I mean, I think they're in a good position. Maybe look at secondary. I mean, when you think back to how San Francisco lost the Super Bowl, do some work in the secondary. I mean, Kansas City wasn't really hit like that in their receiving core, but they were successful. So maybe they may look at DB. I think they should seriously take a look at, and this is going to sound different, maybe mid-tier bringing in a fullback. I mean, you do have Kyle just a check. I always do that with his last name. Just a check, but at the end of the day, they could possibly bring in a fullback. They solid on the line. Trent Williams is still there. I still think that when you look at this San Francisco's offense, you do lose your coordinator in Clint Kubiak. So what does Chris Falstart bring to this team? What direction they're going to go as far as that looks? So, I mean, John Lynch, their GM, got a lot to look forward to and a lot to work on as they start working towards the draft. And what I mean by a lot, are you going to get a fullback, blocking fullback, tight end type guy? Should you add more depth to your D-line? I think they did a decent job in bringing some guys in. Can you improve your receiving core? Maybe bring in another guy, maybe a deep threat guy. I mean, you still got Brandon Ioka and, of course, Deebo Samuel, but it'll be interesting to see what they do because they were so close. But no cigar. And lastly here, Buffalo, they made a deal. They extended Tyron Johnson's contract. Buffalo is a team that is really interesting because they always seem like they're just right there. Like, man, if y'all just make this one move, y'all put yourselves in a better position to be successful. So I think when you look at this Buffalo team, you want to shore up your cornerbacks, your secondary, because you got some serious targets to, go against. And they made a lot of cuts and a lot of moves last week. I mean, they had memes going like crazy. But Buffalo, it really depends on what y'all going to do with Stephon Diggs. Should you bring in another wide receiver? There's some talented wide receivers still out there in free agency, but also in this draft. They do bring in Curtis Samuel from Washington. So that's why I say it really depends, because you still have Khalil Shakir there. You have Mac Hollis as a backup. You have one of the top-tier quarterbacks in the league. You do bring in Mitchell Trubisky behind them. Go figure. And I thought James Cook was solid for him. I mean, you have to realize they still have Joe Brady as OC. He's someone who's solid. We saw that offense look a lot like LSU's offense, a very prolific one in 2019. So that's why you saw them using James Cook the way they would typically use Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Sidebar, speaking of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think he may end up actually signing with Buffalo because he is a free agent and available. So we just kind of want to look around the league. We'll look at some free agency things later on here in the show. It's Inside the Trenches podcast, baby. We just cruising through segment one. We got, I say segment one, hour one. I'm so used to talking in segments. But we got more to talk here. We're going to look at some of the top free agency deals of all time for quarterbacks. It's Inside the Trenches podcast. We'll be right back on ESPN New Orleans. Hello. Well, hello, it's Marlon Favorite with Inside the Trenches podcast. Are you looking for a brand new car? Or you're tired of what you're driving around in? Or you just need wheels? Well, if that's the case, you need to visit Montero Motors, 1512 North Causeway, Metairie, Louisiana. At Montero Motors, our buddy Alberto will get you in a vehicle that fits you that day with no problem. They have vehicles that are pre-owned. You can do a trade-in that day and ride off in something that day. Visit MonteroMotors.com for more information and let them know you heard about them on Inside the Trenches podcast. Hello. Hello, somebody. It's Marlon Favorite with Inside the Trenches podcast. Do you need a quick car wash? Well, if that's a yes, you need to visit Crown Car Wash, 1336 Stump Boulevard, Gretna, Louisiana, on the West Bank, baby. Crown's the best. You get a spotless wash, nice clean tires, reasonable pricing, and free vacuuming. My favorite part about Crown Car Wash, they open 24/7. That's right, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can visit Crown Car Wash on the West Bank, baby.
And let them know you heard about them on Inside the Trenches podcast with Marlon Big Favorite. Watch out there now.
It's that boy Fred, host of FanView Podcast. Tune into the NOTN app weekdays, 3:30 for the FanView Podcast. Go to NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com to watch more episodes of FanView Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch.
Listen up. Your customers, our listeners, could be hearing about your business right now. Yeah, right now. Don't miss out on the opportunity to advertise with NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com. Call our business department today at 504-475-4793 to hear about our great rates. NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com. We provide the people, you provide the business.
Now New Orleans has a choice. Download the New Orleans Talk Network app for your mobile device or listen at www.neworleanstalknetwork.com.
Game Madden, see the game like Madden, commentate like Madden, living life fantastic.
Welcome back. It's Inside the Trenches podcast. I'm your host, Marlon Big Favorite. You can follow me at Big Fave 504. And this segment is brought to you guys by Crown Car Wash, 1336 Stump Boulevard, Gretna, Louisiana. Can't miss it, the Big Purple Building. They're open 24/7. Go by and get you a wash. I think it's about time for me to head back over there too. Crown Car Wash on the West Bank, 24/7. Cheapest prices in town as far as washes go. I think you could get a single wash for as low as $7 and all the amenities that come with it, the vacuum, maybe like an extra $2, you can get the tire shine. Quick, convenient. I gotta make my way over there this evening, baby. Watch out there now. So in this segment, I want to look at some of the top free agency signings of all time. Prime on NFL on Prime did a breakdown of some of these guys, and what I like about it is the time gaps, right? The 70s, early 2000s, into the 2000s. We were blessed and fortunate enough. The first guy I'm about to mention, Doug Williams. Now, this deal here went down in 1986. That was the year I was born. Doug played at Grambling State University, historical college here in Louisiana. Right now, he is a senior advisor for the Washington Commanders. He also sits on the board of trustees for the HBCU Classic. That's why we had an opportunity to sit down and talk with him on our show just about the game and his time in the NFL. So I do want to walk through his professional career. Out of Grambling, he was drafted to Tampa Bay. 17th overall in the first round at the quarterback. Williams became the first African-American quarterback taken in the first round. Really interesting historical fact. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting in his story. He signs with Oklahoma/Arizona Outlaws. This was when the USFL was in play. This was the late 80s. He signed this deal, and he tore it up in 1984. He completed 261 passes out of 528 attempts, 15 touchdowns. He did so well where he ended up signing with the Washington, at the time, Skins, which is now the Commanders. And Doug Williams became the first black quarterback to play in the Super Bowl and win it. So I thought that this definitely deserved. I see where NFL on Prime is going at with Doug Williams. Historical. I mean, not only was this big for the NFL, but this was huge for the African-American community. It opened up doors. Basically, Doug opened up doors for guys like Lamar Jackson, athletic quarterbacks with big arms. You talk about guys like Jameis Winston going first pick overall. Doug Williams, definitely that man. Now check this out. Tell me if this sounds familiar. This for all my folks, my Lil Wayne fans. Straight up, I ain't got no conversation for you. Go ahead and talk to the gunnin'. Y'all remember hearing that? That sound familiar, y'all? Gunnin'. Y'all remember that, Tarek? Maybe a little bit. That's the famous sound from Dedication 2. One of his, maybe one or two first tracks on that Lil Wayne. Come to find out, I think DJ Cannon did that beat. He wanted to say, he sampled the video game Madden, and the announcer was like, Rich Gannon, up for the pass. I'm like, wait, hold on, what? Oh, that's crazy. So that was the sample the whole time with that. That's a cool fact. So Rich Gannon ended up in 1999 signing with the Raiders. Now, just a little background on Rich Gannon. I want to tell y'all all of this just so we could kind of judge it the right way. Played in Minnesota. Got in Minnesota in 1987. Played at Washington in 93. So when he signed with Oakland, this was later on in his career, to the lateral part of his career in 1999, where he was the Pro Bowl MVP that year. I mean, Rich Gannon was ball. I don't know if y'all remember that. I mean, I'm a Madden head, so I just remember picking Oakland a couple of times, and then he would help them advance to the Super Bowl. So they ended up going to the Super Bowl. I mean, of course, due to a neck injury, his career came to an end in 2014. But I mean, this was huge for them when they took on this 19. It was 1999. I'll read it how it is. Gannon signed as a free agent to Oakland. Head coach at the time, John Gruden, that name came up a lot down here. He was voted for the Pro Bowl that year. In 2021 and 2022, he won the Pro Bowl, and he also was the most valuable player in the NFL in 2002 when he helped the Raiders advance to the Super Bowl. And we know how that story there ended. Of course, wait, who did they play in 2002? I mean, Rich Gannon was also a broadcaster as well. I mean, you've heard about him a number of times. He continued to advise in the NFL as well. So I just think that that's a cool part of his career to be able to hit the heights that he hit. Now, I want to say there was 2002 where he had 4,689 yards. Rich Gannon. I mean, he gets in the conversation. I mean, being able to lead your team to the Super Bowl. Now, they did end up losing to Tampa that year. They did lose to Tampa in 2002. If y'all remember that team with Warren Sapp and all those guys on there, that was a big time deal. That was Tony Dungy being able to take advantage of that, if I'm not mistaken, if my history serves me correct. Now, another Super Bowl champion. This guy's a two-time Super Bowl champion. He won it in 2006, and he also won it in 2012, and that's Peyton Manning. This conversation has to happen, right? He jumps in it. Peyton, arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Peyton is in a lot of people's top 5 quarterbacks of all time. We're going to be a bit biased here in New Orleans because he is a New Orleanian. And, of course, you guys may know his dad, Arch Manning, played for the Saints, was drafted by the Saints out of Ole Miss. Family tree of quarterbacks, man. When you start thinking about families from Louisiana, you get the mindset like the Joseph family, like Vance Joseph, Mickey Joseph, Peyton Manning, his brothers, the Mannings, like, that's big time. So, of course, Peyton spent most of his career with the Colts. The Colts wanted to go a different direction, so they ended up bringing in Andrew Luck. They brought in Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck doesn't retire right now. He's probably the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL right now, easily, right? Still to this date. But they ended up parting ways with Peyton, and I never thought this would happen in a million years. Of course, Peyton was my teammate as well in 2011. And when you go to Anderson, Indiana, it is Peyton Manningville. You have Peyton Manning Elementary. You have Peyton Manning Children's Hospital. I mean, I just never could imagine a scene where he isn't there. and he ended up going to the Broncos. Shouts out to Trendon Holiday. He won a Super Bowl that year. That's my teammate from LSU, the speedster wide receiver specialist in that season. He handled his business. So Peyton is on this list. Jim Plunkett. Now, this is back in this happened, I want to say in 1978. Yeah, this happened in 1978 to Oakland. Another Oakland situation where, and if you're just tuning in, NFL Prime on Prime dropped a deal on their Instagram, best free agent signings for quarterbacks. They mentioned Doug Williams, Rich Gannon in 1999. Of course, we know about his Super Bowl run, or Super Bowl run, having that Super Bowl caliber season with the numbers. Peyton Manning, 2012. And then there's Jimmy Plunkett, 1970, 1978. Of course, I wasn't born then, but just following NFL history, when you look at, so he was a Super Bowl MVP. He did win the Super Bowl for them. This was in 1983. They beat the Washington, which is now the Commanders. They beat them 38-9. He completed 16 for 25, 172 yards. And had a long career in the NFL, by the way. I mean, he played in the NFL from 1971 to 1986. So some folks now, I know I do have an older listening audience. Also, I say a listening audience that's a bit older than me. So y'all let me know if he should be in a conversation as well. I thought we should mention it. Tom Brady, 2020, spent his entire career, double-digit career, out in New England, and in 1 year, assembles like a Avengers type crew, right? You come on Tampa Bay, the young defense. You got Devin White and those guys. You got receivers Mike Evans, and yeah, Tom Brady comes to the NFC South and wins the Super Bowl in the 2020 season, and becomes the most successful Super Bowl winner in the NFL. Like, exclude no person. No person nor organization has more Super Bowl rings than Tom Brady. So I definitely think that jumps to the top of this list, if not the biggest deal of all time. Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner probably have the more interesting story out of the guys we mentioned. Spent a lot of time in arena football, playing in that league before. Was fun to play. Played at Northern Iowa as well. In arena, he played with the barn. That's sad. I played in the arena. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. Barn something is out of the middle of nowhere in Iowa. Barnstormers. Coach Pio, I don't know how I forget that coach. He played there, was Hall of Fame in arena, and had a successful, greatest show on turf. I mean, where do we start with Kurt Warner? Made it deep into the playoffs later on in his career when we had our Super Bowl run here in New Orleans. Won a Super Bowl with the St. Louis Rams. I mean, Kurt Warner is definitely one of those guys, need without mention, deserves a lot of respect. I mean, that 1999 season in St. Louis, man, hello somebody. We got a few more minutes here on the show. I want to go through one more person I want to mention. Drew Brees, baby, New Orleans Saints. Drew, what he did here for the city of New Orleans post-Hurricane Katrina speaks volumes, talking about a story of resiliency. Drew Brees just one of those guys who his career speaks for itself. We know that Drew went to Purdue. He ended up being drafted to the Chargers, spent 4 years out there, and then came down to New Orleans for another 15 years. I mean, won Super Bowl, had a Super Bowl MVP, and it's just one of the all-time quarterbacks in terms of yards of completion, total yards, touchdown passes. I mean, Drew Brees. So y'all tell me what y'all think. Is it somebody I didn't mention? I don't want to put it in any particular order, but Tom Brady for sure, Doug Williams. I look at monumental moments, right? Doug Williams being the first African-American quarterback to get drafted in the first round and to win a Super Bowl. Drew Brees, I mean, he was told he'd never play again, right? Now, you'll never be able to play quarterback 25%. he beats all odds, becomes an NFL great. Tom Brady, 1 year on the team, just changed the culture, wins the Super Bowl. I mean, there's so much to look at with this, y'all. It's Inside the Trenches podcast. Want to wrap up hour one, talk a little bit of free agency. I'll be joined by my homeboy, Hunt Palmer from LSU Sports Radio. He's going to talk LSU on the hardwood, our ladies, and we're going to talk a little LSU baseball. It's Inside the Trenches podcast, baby. And remember, can't go nowhere without our sponsors. This segment was brought to you by Crown Car Wash. That's 1336 Stump Boulevard in Gretna, Louisiana. We'll be back here, Inside the Trenches podcast, New Orleans Talk Network. Hello, somebody. It's Marlon Big Favorite with Inside the Trenches podcast. Do you need a quick car wash? Well, if that's a yes, you need to visit Crown Car Wash, 1336 Stump Boulevard, Gretna, Louisiana, on the West Bank, baby. Crown's the best. You get a spotless wash, nice clean tires, reasonable pricing, and free vacuuming. My favorite part about Crown Car Wash, they open 24/7. That's right, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can visit Crown Car Wash on the West Bank, baby, and let them know you heard about them on Inside the Trenches podcast with Marlon Big Favorite. Watch out there now. Are you a student athlete looking to take your career to the next level? Look no further than Conquer Sports Pros. That's right, Conquer Sports Pros. Our team of experts will get you guys on the right path to your student athlete journey in life. That's right, we have every position in football you need, and we also help out with other sports. At Conquer Sports Pros, you have everything from a list of consultation, training, and also media training. Yeah, that's right. When you take your career to the next level, play college and hopefully pro, you'll get lots of interviews. Call Conquer Sports Pros today. You can reach them at 504-319-6672 or visit marlonfavorite.com for more information. Hello, somebody. Well, hello, it's Marlon Big Favorite with Inside the Trenches podcast. Are you looking for a brand new car? Or you're tired of what you're driving around in? Or you just need wheels? Well, if that's the case, you need to visit Montero Motors, 1512 North Causeway, Metairie, Louisiana. At Montero Motors, our buddy Alberto will get you in a vehicle that fits you that day with no problem. They have vehicles that are pre-owned. You can do a trade-in that day and ride off in something that day. Visit MonteroMotors.com for more information and let them know you heard about them on Inside the Trenches podcast. Hello. He has the heart of a champion.
Now New Orleans has a choice. Download the New Orleans Talk Network app for your mobile device or listen at www.neworleanstalknetwork.com.
Hello, somebody. It's your host, Marlon Big Favorite. We back on Inside the Trenches podcast, hour 2. Joining me right now on the Small Sliders hotline, it's my buddy, my homie. Y'all hearing him every week on here, Hunt Palmer. Y'all make sure y'all check out his show, The Hunt Palmer Show, from 1 to 3 p.m. on ESPN Baton Rouge 4.5. Hunt, happy day, brother. How's it going?
We're doing all right, Fade. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Last night we were at UPT Sports Social, just looking at this move the Saints made with Chase Young. We talked about it earlier here on the show.
Yeah, I got you. I lost you when you said you were talking about Chase Young.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. No, did you like the move the Saints did by signing Chase Young to the $13 million deal?
Yeah, I think it's a good deal. I think for the Saints to have it be a one-year deal is positive. You're not going to have to worry about restructuring it or converting anything to signing bonus or trying to figure out anything with the salary cap. just a 1-year deal. He obviously helps you out at a position of need. The Saints did not rush the passer well at all. I think you're looking at a guy on one end in Carl Granderson that had some flashes, but I think it's pretty obvious that Cam Jordan's best football is behind him, and you're not going to count on him to be a big sack guy. So if Chase Young can come in and make an impact rushing the passer, I think that's really good. And even if he doesn't work out, just a 1-year deal, it's not going to hurt you down the road.
Not at all. They was able to move some money around, create some cap space. You bring in an edge rusher. That's proven. I know he had the injury year, but I'm with you on that, Hunt. Let's take it on over to LSU baseball. We had a rough one against Mississippi State. We ended up losing that series. I want to say it was 2-1. Get swept. So I guess recap what happened this weekend at what you call it? Duty Noble Field, Starkville.
Duty Noble Field there in Starkville. Yeah, it was a bad weekend for LSU pitching. They had a couple of guys who threw it well on Saturday, Griffin Herring and Nate Ackenhausen, and they were able to get to the finish line after jumping out to a 9-1 lead. But other than that, it was just a terrible weekend for pitching all the way around. I don't think that's necessary. Emblematic of things to come. I think LSU does have a good pitching staff. I think they had a bad weekend. And unfortunately, it was against probably one of the lesser teams on your schedule, and you dropped 2 out of 3 before a really, really difficult 4-weekend stretch that starts with the defending national runner-up, Florida, coming up here on Friday. But they got to pitch it better. It's got to be Luke Holman, Gage Jump, Thatcher Hurd, and the entire bullpen. It's got to do a way better job of getting swings and misses. They only struck out 20 guys over 3 games. To put that in perspective, they struck out 20 guys in 1 game against Texas 2 weeks ago. So they've just got to do a much better job of pitching, and I think they will.
They take on Louisiana Tech tonight. I know this might not be much of a matchup, but do you feel this is a game they can probably look at some of the areas they messed up in the Mississippi State game and make some improvement against Tech?
Tech's a good team. Tech's won a lot of games already. They've had a good program. It's made it to a couple of regionals in the last 4 years. And so it is a quality midweek opponent. You're not going to see any of the weekend starters in the game on a Tuesday night, but you'll see the regulars from a position standpoint. Yeah, the LSU needs to start with Javen Coleman on the mound and send a bunch of guys out there that throw it a lot better than they did over the weekend. Then you got to hope that your offense continues to keep clicking. So it's certainly not a headlining game like a Florida or Tennessee, but it's a quality opponent.
LSU takes on Florida. It's going to be the 22nd, the 23rd, and the 24th. What are some? Let's see this. It's a home field advantage. I know we're at Alex Box, but to beat Florida, you really have to do, based off your observation from the Mississippi State run. I know you mentioned pitching. What are some other areas you think they need to improve in going into this Florida game?
Pitching's number one for sure. And look, Florida's team that can really swing the bat offensively. Jack Caglione is potentially going to be the first pick in the draft and was as good a player as there was in college baseball last year. Cade Curlin's an awesome second baseman for them. They brought in a transfer from Alabama named Cody Shelton, who's a really, really good hitter. They can hit the ball out of the ballpark with anybody in the country. And so LSU's going to have to do a good job of keeping the ball in the yard against Florida. Offensively for LSU, you're facing a Florida staff that's talented, but has not pitched it very well to this point. Cade Fisher's going on Fridays for them and hasn't taken that step from his freshman to sophomore year. On Sunday, they will have Jack Caglione going. I think he'll pitch on Sunday, who's really, really good. He's one of the best pitchers in the country and one of the best hitters in the country. So it's a tall challenge. LSU's going to have to play well in every phase to win a game or two this weekend, that's for sure.
If you're just tuning in to Inside the Trenches podcast, joining me on the Small Sliders Hotline is Hunt Palmer, LSU Sports Radio. My co-host, him and Brandon. We have a great time during football season, calling the pre-shows and the post-shows for LSU. But you can also check Hunt out at Hunt Palmer 88 on Twitter, or X, should I say. And then you can also check out his show Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Hunt, get the thing rolling. I want to switch gears to a little bit of tournament, basketball, NCAA, LSU women. Talk to me about this bracket that they're in. I know we have Iowa, UConn. How the ladies fare out in this bracket that they're in?
Yeah, it's really tough. They'll be at home. They'll play a Rice team that they should handle pretty easily on Friday. But after that, it gets tough. Potentially, you see Louisville, who had Haley and Les on the team last year, who's now transferred and is running the point for LSU. That's a quality program. UCLA has had a great year. LSU would have to deal with them, and then you do have Iowa and Caitlin Clark in your bracket before the Final Four. So could see the National Player of the Year and one of the best college basketball players ever in the women's game before you get to the Final Four. The good news is that South Carolina is on the other side, so you wouldn't see them until the national final. But it's going to be difficult for LSU to get there. It's a tough draw.
It is, and it is somewhat of a pressure hunt because, I mean, you are the champion. You still have a lot of key players on the roster. Of course, Angel Reese being SEC Player of the Year. Flaugier, Big Foe, handle her business a lot. I do know that last tier Poe, she did this year, did she not clear the concussion protocol so far?
It sounds like she should be ready to go. It's been 2 weeks since they had to play, so I can't say that for certain, but I would expect to see her on Friday.
Number 3 seed, LSU, taking on, going on this side of things. I mean, it's kind of similar to how things went last year for LSU. Man, Hunt, before I go, we do football. I do football, and LSU has started off spring ball, and they're doing indoor practices, outdoor practices. I was able to catch some film. What are you hearing about LSU's spring practices? Who's shining? Who are some guys we could look out for in the spring game?
Yeah, I think the biggest storyline is the defense. You bring in Blake Baker, and they just got to get a lot better. I don't know what else to phrase it other than the defense was unacceptable last year, and they've got to play better. So Blake Baker's got that task on his hands. They're going to move Harold Perkins inside to inside linebacker, which I think is interesting, and we'll see how that looks. And then Corey Raymond's got to get a group of corners, some coming off injury, some coming off suspension, some coming in from transfer, some that are freshmen. It's just a bunch of guys, and they've got to play a lot better. So those guys have got a big 2 weeks in front of them to try to improve.
Going back to the inside, we wasn't favorable of that move. How much is this is Harold Perkins wanting to do this, and how much is this his scheme from Baker?
I think it's both. I think that Harold Perkins has an incredible skill set and one that they did a good job of using 2 years ago, and I think you could argue they didn't do a great job of using it last year. And the question is, how do you best use Harold Perkins to win games for LSU at the same time while improving him as a football player and getting him ready to be drafted, which is also something you've got to take into consideration. So I think once they sat down and talked about all those things, they kind of map out a plan, and we'll see it put into place in the fall.
We look at LSU's defensive line as well. I talked to you about this briefly last show. Guys that we expect to step up, Savion Jones, Tank Guillory. I know they had to move. Hunt even asked me, he was like, Fave, you get a couple plays in it. They need the depth. Let's fast forward past the spring game. Look at some of the guys that's coming in. Dominique McKinley's coming in. We're more than likely going to utilize the transfer portal for some guys. How do you think that shapes up for LSU? What are some targets? Do you think Dominique, depending on how he develops, may see a lot of playing time because of this?
Look, it's tough to play freshmen. Dominique McKinley, Gabe Relaford, highly thought of players in their class, but you're going from dealing with 240-pound offensive linemen in high school to dealing with guys who are going to be first-round picks next year on the offensive front. It's just it's a whole new world once you get to college. So I would hope they don't have to lean too much on the freshmen. I would hope that Sean Washington and some of the other guys they brought in and that they will bring in the transfer portal coming up in the next couple of weeks can help. But, yeah, you've got some talented young players. We'll just see how much they use them.
We've been used to seeing prolific offenses here. We've been spoiled, Hunt. 2019, last season, with Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels. Nussmeier takes over as well. We've had a chance to see him a few times. Of course, his last bowl game, Jaden was proud of him. When you look at this LSU's quarterback room and the key weapons that they have in the receiving core, what's your thoughts? Like, are you ecstatic? Like, man, LSU's about to make this thing happen, or do you have some concerns still at the QB and the skill positions?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I thought Gary Nussmeier played great in the bowl game. I'm a little more concerned with replacing the production of Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas on the outside. We'll see what Kyron Lacey can do. We'll see if Aaron Anderson can get healthy. They brought in 2 transfers, and Xavier Washington and DJ Daniels. We'll see what those guys can do. You've still got Shelton Sampson, who was a really talented freshman last year that didn't get a lot of playing time. So there are tons of options for LSU, but they don't have any proven production like the guys that are moving on. So I'm curious to see kind of what that looks like. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, they have depth in the receiving corps, so I'm excited about that. The running backs, as long as Caleb Jackson back there, we're in good hands and everything is rolling fine. Man, Hunt, thank you so much for your time. We're going to get a little bit more in the spring next week, and hopefully we're talking about a victorious LSU baseball team and they get over this Mississippi State loss. Hunt, before I let you go, what could we expect from the Hunt Palmer Show for the rest of this week?
Man, lots this week. I got basketball, men in the NIT, women in the NCAA tournament. Spring football's cranking on. Got baseball and conference play. It's as packed a time as there is on the sports calendar here. So I love the spring.
LSU baseball, LSU basketball, football season coming up for me and Hunt, man. My man has all the information for you. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Hunt. I'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good, Dave. Thanks, man.
My guy, that's Hunt Palmer. Y'all make sure y'all follow him at Hunt Palmer 88 on Instagram, Twitter. Hunt's going to keep you in the loop with all of the LSU up-to-date news. And hello, somebody. My man Hunt's Inside the Trenches podcast. We'll be back hour 2. We got more LSU to talk. We're going to dive back into the NFL as well. We'll be back on New Orleans Talk Network, ESPN Radio.
To get in this green, you gave us the game. I saw it with Chop, I saw it with Kane. I'm able to vision. The sky's the limit, I'm pushing the limit.
Are you a student athlete looking to take your career to the next level? Look no further than Conquer Sports Pros. That's right, Conquer Sports Pros. Our team of experts will get you guys on the right path to your student athlete journey in life. That's right, we have every position in football you need, and we also help out with other sports. At Conquer Sports Pros, you have everything from a list of consultation, training, and also media training. Yeah, that's right. When you take your career to the next level, play college and hopefully pro, you'll get lots of interviews. Call Conquer Sports Pros today. You can reach them at 504-319-6672 or visit marlonfavorite.com for more information. Hello, somebody. Are you looking for your dream home? Well, if that's the case, you need to contact Joe Piccolo at Godwyn Realty, right here in New Orleans. Joe can put you in your dream home right away. Joe Piccolo and the folks over at Godwyn Realty put you in the house that you need. Even if you're looking to invest in some property, they'll do an excellent job with that as well. Contact Joe today at 504-251-8341. Again, that phone number is 504-251-8341. And also contact Joel at joel.godwynrealty.com. No need to dream anymore. Godwyn Realty will put you in the dream house of your reality. Hello, somebody.
It's that boy Fred, host of FanView Podcast. Tune into the NOTN app weekdays, 3:30 for the FanView Podcast. Go to NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com to watch more episodes of FanView Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch.
Listen up. Your customers, our listeners, could be hearing about your business right now. Yeah, right now. Don't miss out on the opportunity to advertise with NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com. Call our business department today at 504-475-4793 to hear about our great rates. NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com. We provide the people, you provide the business.
Hello, somebody. It's Marlon Big Favorite with Inside the Trenches podcast. Do you need a quick car wash? Well, if that's a yes, you need to visit Crown Car Wash, 1336 Stump Boulevard, Gretna, Louisiana, on the West Bank, baby. Crown's the best. You get a spotless wash, nice clean tires, reasonable pricing, and free vacuuming. My favorite part about Crown Car Wash, they open 24/7. That's right, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can visit Crown Car Wash on the West Bank, baby, and let them know you heard about them on Inside the Trenches podcast with Marlon Big Favorite. Watch out there now. What's down, beautiful people? What's good with y'all out there? It's your host, Marlon Favorite, right? You're listening to Inside the Trenches podcast here on ESPN New Orleans, streaming live on New Orleans Talk Network. We're having ourselves a great show. We had Hunt Palmer come on earlier, talk a little bit of LSU with us. Had an awesome time with him. And we balling over here, baby. Speaking of balling, this segment is brought to you by Conquer Sports Pros. Conquer Sports Pros, we train at 600 St. Joseph Street in Harvey, Louisiana. Can't miss us. We do a little softball over there, too. So if you have any parents out there, you have young men who play on the offensive, defensive line, and or you have daughters that play softball, y'all hit us up over at Conquer Sports. We'll get you rolling. All my homies rolling. Speaking of my homies rolling, y'all know I got a couple of my little partners at LSU. How they say, call me Onk. What's how I'm Onk when I come back there as Onk. And then now I have what used to be my coaches, now my mentors there as well. There's Corey Raymond. Corey Raymond probably, he didn't coach me personally. Obviously, I didn't play defense of back, but see Raymond would come holler at me like just after a spring practice or in the weight room and just give me little gems and little dimes. I remember one time he told me, he said, man, Favorite, you balling out there? Yeah, but you should got to work on your consistency, man. See, Corey Raymond's one of them guys. He'll sit there quiet and listen in the cut. So he didn't probably heard, whether it was Coach Lane or whether it was Coach Jimmy saying, hey, Marlon, need to work on this. And my coaches were very transparent with me at LSU, but it just goes to show you the type of coach he is. I couldn't tell you how much I appreciate Coach Bo Davis. The biggest treat for us was Coach Miles' first year. We had Coach Carl Dunbar as our lead D-line coach and Coach Bo Davis as an assistant D-line coach. And when I say that made our room blessed, that carried us for the next few years at LSU, just the information alone we got in just those days. So I appreciate him. Coach Blake comes back. I mean, there's a lot of familiarity with me on this coaching staff here at LSU. As we discuss LSU spring, they're going into 2 weeks of spring. It just got me reminiscing on a lot of the key pieces that's there across the staff. Coach Kevin Peoples, when he was at Tulane, even at Missouri, he would always evaluate our guys over at Conquer Sports. We talk all the time about recruits. He was very close to getting one of our players, Donald Bernard, back when he was at Tulane. Navy and Tulane were interested in him. He ended up rolling at Navy. Donald Bernard, also known as Biscuit, had a great career out of Baton Rouge at U-High and at Navy, doing great things. Coach Blake, he's there. Familiarity with him in 2021, working for LSU Sports Radio. Had a cup of coffee with him as well. So I just look at the support around the team. So often we evaluate the players, but we don't take a second look at the coaches. And I think that Coach Kelly did an excellent job getting these guys in, even with the co-coordinators, with Coach Joe Salone and Coach Cartaz Hankton. Fred made a good point on the show the other day. He think it's good for this year, but eventually you will want to look at hiring another offensive coordinator. I would be okay with those guys just staying in place the way they are right now. I think the way things are going now, the offense looks extremely healthy. You have the coaching staff rolling. And I just think that LSU, put themselves in a good position to be successful. And West Bank's very own Frank Wilson back there, really quiet as just kept. And this came out of Coach Kelly's mouth when we spoke to him. He met with all the alumni, and just to answer the Q&As with us, he spoke highly of Coach Frank over at LSU, talked about how Frank has really helped him this transition from up north down south and bringing in the right players, just being a great assistant head coach. So I just wanted to talk to you guys this segment about LSU, what I heard, what to expect, things to look forward to as the spring game approaches us next month. Glenn West over at 247, go247.com, he did a little bit of an update, an observation on how things look. So I just kind of wanted to I looked at his article. I looked at a couple of the names he mentioned. I've been watching different film. I know Power Hour, LSU, they do a lot of film. And I just, to be quite honest with you working for LSU Sports Radio,
I reach out to guys like Hunt, people who are out there. And then, if I got to just call Frank, like, hey, man, what's happening? I'm just going to do that too. But the first team offensive line, you have Will Campbell, you have Garrett Dellinger, DJ Chester, Miles Frazier, Emory Jones. I think this whole offensive line, this is one of Coach Kelly's specialties, offensive line. You look at the first offensive lineman that's going to come off the board this year in this year's draft is Joe Alt. Joe Alt is the third biggest prospect on a lot of draft boards. He comes from Notre Dame. Mike McGlinchey, Notre Dame. Quentin Nelson, best center in the league, Notre Dame. So I do think that when you look at this LSU's offensive line, they're in good hands, not to mention Coach Brad Davis, who's not only a good coach, played the game as a player, but he also inspires. One of our players, Christian Stamps, Ashton Stamps, his older brother, he plays on the offensive line for LSU. He spoke highly about Coach Brad, just a solid guy. When you look at the second team, you have Tyree Adams. Tyree's my little cousin, too. Shout out to his mama, Barbara. Just found that out, too. Me and found out we was related, like, middle of last season. It's crazy. You have Paul. You have Paul Mobinga. Sorry if I messed up your name, G. You have Coyne, Eccles, Ethan Colloway, and you have Bo Bordelon. Cool story about Bo. I trained Bo when he was a defensive end. He was still at E.D. White at the time. It was during the pandemic. I worked Bo out with Coach Duke, him and his brother Brent. Brent's another big-time name for the class of 2025. More than likely might end up at LSU as well. When you get into the running game, it's only natural for you to think about how LSU is going to split the time. John Emery declared to the draft. You still have Josh Williams and Caleb Williams. Next year, everybody's anticipating Barry coming in, making some strides in the class of 2025. But when you look at LSU, durability, responsible, a leader, and a guy who's going to scrap for yards in Josh Williams. I do think him coming out, he reminds me so much of Justin Vincent in his approach to the game. I think he's someone we need to pay attention to. Caleb Jackson, when I think of Caleb Jackson, I think explosive. I see flashes of Leonard Fournette. I know y'all see it too. We watch the games. I'm just lower that shoulder down and truck. I think when you look at how they're going to utilize those two guys this year, we may see a time where they're both in the backfield at the same time. I just think that the fact that Joe Salone and Cortez Hankton took over the offensive play calling, like total control of it, I do think we see some different looks back there, should I say. I talked to Hunt earlier about the receiving core, Chris Hilton, Xavier Thomas, Kyle Parker, C.J. Daniels, Aaron Anderson, just to name a few of these guys. Kyrie Lacey is more than likely going to be your number one. When you look at this LSU's wide receiving core, it's only one word I can think of, and that word is potential. In the spring game, I can imagine Nussmeier don't mind throwing the deep ball. Which one of these receivers going to, get up under the deep ball or make the plays in space like Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbor did consistently last year? And I think about Chris Hilton and Kyrie Lacey. These guys were getting in the mix. So it's really their jobs to be not only leaders, but confident players in that wide receiver core. I'm going to stick here on the West Bank. Glenn wrote about how Kyrie Lee looks pretty trim. I did see Kyrie Lee. I remember when Coach Elliott Porter was first coaching him as a freshman and a sophomore at John Eric. We saw the potential then. He had an early offer from LSU. He did commit early. He's there now because he's a smart kid. I think he's a 3.8. He was able to pull a Derek Stingley off and be there in the spring. I think that is something that you look at as well. Kimo Makio, he had to move over to the defensive line. And he's been also, Bo Bordelon was working with him on the offensive line. So, I mean, they kind of,
And Bo is somebody, Quad has just kept, he had experience playing on defense. So I can imagine if it gets this way. I mean, this is just really for spring. I do think Chemo goes back to the offensive line. He's just being a team player. When you look at LSU defensively, and I'll spend a minute here on the defense, you start thinking leadership. I think when you look at a guy like Major Burns and Sage Ryan, those guys have enough games under their belt. Coming in as big-time scholars, major recruits for LSU, on a suffering LSU defense, I thought that those guys held their ground. I like the fact that Austin Alsbury is now in the mix with this second group when you look at the safeties. He's someone who transferred over from Auburn. The associate AD at LSU is Verge Alsbury. As a matter of fact, I was on live a little earlier, and Verge jumped in. That's my boy, man. Verge, son, Austin, is one heck of an athlete. I saw him at U-High up close and personal. He did his thing. One of the key pieces here that a lot of folks are looking forward to with this LSU's defense is how well Harold Perkins is going to fit in taking over at that middle linebacker position again. We wasn't super favorable of that at first, right? A lot of folks are like, man, why they moving Harold Perkins over there? He really needs to be in this position doing this. I'm not a big fan of it, but I do trust the defensive staff. I do think a lot of this has to do with Harold Perkins' preference and wanting to be looked at in this NFL draft as a linebacker. I do understand that. But just being a member of the media, sitting next to a lot of the scouts a lot of times, it doesn't have to go down like that. Like, they like him as a playmaker. Let the teams place him how they feel they should. So that's a quick update on LSU spring ball. I'm going to try to get y'all these at least 2 or 3 times a week. Just been talking to a lot of the staff out there, some of the people just wanting to get y'all better information or more transferable information with LSU. Y'all don't go anywhere. It's Inside the Trenches podcast. We live here at the New Orleans Talk Network studio. It's ESPN New Orleans, 100.3 FM. Remember, y'all going to be able to check this show out Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. right here on ESPN New Orleans. Y'all don't go anywhere. We got some more football to talk, baby. Hello, somebody. Are you a student athlete looking to take your career to the next level? Look no further than Conquer Sports Pros. That's right, Conquer Sports Pros. Our team of experts will get you guys on the right path to your student athlete journey in life. That's right, we have every position in football you need, and we also help out with other sports. At Conquer Sports Pros, you have everything from a list of consultation, training, and also media training. Yeah, that's right. When you take your career to the next level, play college and hopefully pro, you'll get lots of interviews. Call Conquer Sports Pros today. You can reach them at 504-319-6672 or visit marlonfavorite.com for more information. Hello, somebody. Are you looking for your dream home? Well, if that's the case, you need to contact Joe Piccolo at Godwyn Realty, right here in New Orleans. Joe can put you in your dream home right away. Joe Piccolo and the folks over at Godwyn Realty put you in the house that you need. Even if you're looking to invest in some property, they'll do an excellent job with that as well. Contact Joe today at 504-251-8341. Again, that phone number is 504-251-8341. And also contact Joel at joel.godwynrealty.com. No need to dream anymore. Godwyn Realty will put you in the dream house of your reality. Hello, somebody.
It's that boy Fred, host of FanView Podcast. Tune into the NOTN app weekdays, 3:30 for the FanView Podcast. Go to NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com to watch more episodes of FanView Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch.
Listen up. Your customers, our listeners, could be hearing about your business right now. Yeah, right now. Don't miss out on the opportunity to advertise with NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com. Call our business department today at 504-475-4793 to hear about our great rates. NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com. We provide the people, you provide the business.
Hello, somebody.
It's Marlon Big Favorite with Inside the Trenches podcast. Do you need a quick car wash? Well, if that's a yes, you need to visit Crown Car Wash, 1336 Stump Boulevard, Gretna, Louisiana, on the West Bank, baby. Crown's the best. You get a spotless wash, nice clean tires, reasonable pricing, and free vacuuming. My favorite part about Crown Car Wash, they open 24/7. That's right, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can visit Crown Car Wash on the West Bank, baby, and let them know you heard about them on Inside the Trenches podcast with Marlon Big Favorite. Watch out there now.
I'm feeling like Pete. I'm about it, I'm living a dream. I live in New Orleans. I'm ballin', I'm rapping, I'm raising some kings. One time for the Millers. It's really no limit to getting this green. Get you some product. Invest in the people, invest in your streams. I'm feeling like Pete. I'm about it, I'm living a dream. I live in New Orleans. I'm ballin', I'm rapping, I'm raising some kings.
Welcome back, baby. It's Inside the Trenches podcast. And I'm your host, Marlon Big Favorite. And this segment, right here on New Orleans Talk Network, is brought to you guys by Godwyn Realty. Y'all holler at my man Joe. Y'all always see him. He's my co-host. He's also a supporter of the show. If you need commercial property, residential property, you're trying to sell some property, hit up Godwyn Realty. Ask for Joe. Their office is on Soapy Right and Magazine, right where the where they cross each other, and you can holler at my man Joe at Godwyn Realty. Hello, somebody. So we're going to stick to LSU on this segment, and we're going to look at the Tigers in the draft. I've been keeping up with ESPN New Orleans. Of course we've been keeping up with ESPN New Orleans because that's where the show is going to be at from 6 to 8 every Monday through Friday evening. But I've been keeping up with ESPN, and I've been going on CBS Sports, Fox Sports, just listening to the different or reading some of the stuff that different beat writers have been going. But one site that breaks it down really well, I've been going on a lot, is NFL draftbuzz.com. They do a decent job at breaking down not only your favorite teams and their players, but they have the combine notes and just the different areas that even the scouts need to look at in regards to seeing what players' strengths and weaknesses are. Where will they go? That's the question when we think about the LSU players in the draft. We're going to start this thing off in the order that they have it. And they have Malik Neighbors out of the bunch, the top prospect coming out of LSU. Malik's about 6 foot, 200 pounds. And what he provides to any team in the NFL, here's a guy that could stretch the field with his speed. You could get him the ball in space. He could cut the burners on and make some plays. I think one of the more impressive plays that he did, and I saw my man Brian Baldy had ended up posting. It was Texas A&M game. Texas A&M was in a zone defense, and Malik Neighbors catches the ball in space and then sprints for the touchdown. They called it back because they said it was holding on Kyrie Lacey. Kyrie was drove to. They have Malik Neighbors projected to be a top 5. So he's a day one guy, and they expect him to be off the board in the first 5 picks. New York Giants. We talked about a couple other teams. Chicago could possibly get Malik Neighbors as their first pick and then come back and try to trade up and get a Daniels or Caleb Williams. But I think when you look at Malik Neighbors' game from that perspective, he's the best wide receiver in this draft. He's not taking anything from Marvin Harrison Jr., Roman Odom, any of those dudes. I think they're all good, but Malik's for sure the best. And his teammate, Brian Thomas, as well. Jaden Daniels, we talked about Jaden early in the show. I felt like he should be the number 1 guy off the board. Jaden's a top 10 quarterback for sure. When you look at his game, he's a dual threat quarterback. And in today's game, when everything breaks down, you do want your quarterbacks to be mobile. And Jaden is the best mobile quarterback in this year's draft. Looking back at his season hindsight 2020, you appreciate what a player like Jaden was able to do for LSU's offense this year. And it's just so unfortunate that our defense didn't play up to par the past season, because we could have really competed in the college football playoffs with these weapons we had on offense. Brian Thomas, I just mentioned him. He's another guy on this deal. They have him projected to be a late rounder for LSU.
Brian has some of the same capabilities that Malik Neighbors have. Now, where Brian Thomas really helped himself, he ran the 4.3 340, which was the second fastest time at this year's combine, and I think that really put him in a position to shoot up the board. They do have him as a projected first rounder, late rounder in this year's draft. Mekhi Wingo, if we would have had Mekhi the entire season as a healthier defensive tackle, I think we would have been a little more stout inside. Mekhi brings versatility to the defensive line as well. He can play the 3-tech, the shade. He can play over the center if you need him to play in there. If a team in a 3-4 defense or who has a 3-4 defense is interested in bringing a guy like him in, he could play a head-up 4-eye, whatever you need him to play. The next guy I'm talking about out of LSU, I wish he would have stayed at LSU, and that's Mason Smith. Mason Smith is projected to be a 4th or 5th rounder, according to NFLBuzz.com. He did exceptionally well at the Combine. Probably one of the biggest prospects at his position to come out of high school in a while. 4-star guy, according to ESPN. I mean, for me, Mason really robbed himself out of at least $14, $15 million. Because here you have a guy that, if you look at his size, 6'5", he ran a 5 flat at the Combine, 306 pounds. Dude, you go back to, and you playing under Bo Davis, brother. But I do think he will have a long career in the NFL. Someone's going to have to bring him in, develop him a little bit. Projected 4th rounder, as I mentioned. His grade on a run defense isn't high, but I think once he gets to going as a pass rusher, he's pretty decent. Jordan Jefferson, and I'm not talking about my little brother, the quarterback, Justin Jefferson's big brother. I'm talking about Jordan Jefferson, defensive tackle we got from West Virginia. 6'3", he ran a 4.7 at the Combine, and he killed the bench press. I think he had the most reps there. They have him projected to go 6th round. In my opinion, I do think if I'm LSU, I would probably bring him in before I bring in, or I would draft him before I draft Mason Smith. Mason Smith, that's just my opinion. I do think Mason Smith has more long-term potential, but Jordan Jefferson, I thought he was after Mekhi Wingo got hurt this year for LSU, I felt like he was one of our more reliable defensive tackles. Going down the line of LSU players that's declared to the draft is what we're checking out here. You have Charles Turner. Charles is solid out of IMG Academy. He was solid for the Tigers last year. They're projecting him to be an undrafted free agent. I'll keep going down a little bit. Andre Sam, undrafted free agent. All of his grades in terms of run defense, coverage zone, he grades out between 72 and 78%, projected to go undrafted. With the skill guys, I think with them they have different opportunities because you can get them on a 45-man roster. A couple of more players for LSU that's expected to be undrafted free agents as well. Omar Sparks, linebacker. See, what hurt LSU defensively this year was just how bad they were. And these were the guys that started. So you look at a guy like Omar Spates, he was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. It was sometimes he was out of position this year for the Tigers, but I also saw where he made some plays in the middle, but we needed a little more consistency out of him. Hopefully he sticks somewhere. 2 running backs, Noah Kane and John Emery, both guys are projected to be undrafted free agents. I kind of feel the same way about the running backs. They have different opportunities in regards to getting on special teams. You know, you got 4 different special teams. Just looking at John is someone, of course, he's friends of the family. Y'all hear the song? You keep calling my phone. That long letters. His sister, Diamond Emery, is actually featured on that song, man. That's my people right there, man. Friends and family.
the Emery family. But John, to me, the injury hurt him a little bit, but you go back to LSU's national championship year, man, this dude is good. So I do think whoever gets John Emery, they do get a steal at running back once he's healthy. Chris, just going through a couple of more LSU players as we wrap up here. That's preparing for the draft. We're just kind of looking at guys. You got Noah Kane, one more guy I mentioned here for LSU. I think Noah, he did some good things. It was a shuffle of backs at LSU this year. Noah had some explosive plays, but to be honest and transparent with you guys, our running back core wasn't really intact the way we're used to seeing it. I mean, John did some things catching out of the backfield. Josh Williams, we talked about him being the premier back for us. And it was just a rotation of backs that we dealt with at LSU. And I think that these guys, once LSU has their pro day and they put themselves in the best shape they possibly can, they knock it out at the pro day somewhere. And look, it's just not about the NFL anymore. You still have the UFL. You still have Canada. So good luck to my Tigers. I pray for these young men as they take on their future endeavors and they live their dream out. They get an opportunity to play in the NFL. I remember the feeling, even though I went undrafted, it was just a blessed feeling to get on a team and be in a NFL locker room. It was definitely a dream come true. And I know a couple of y'all folks' dream to make y'all's dreams come true is to get a new home. Don't forget, Godwyn Realty could get you straight and in a home that you need. Y'all make sure y'all hit my man Joel up. He'll be here on tomorrow and Friday. He'll love to hear from you. It's Inside the Trenches podcast. We got one more segment here, baby. Hour 2. Live on New Orleans Talk Network. ESPN New Orleans. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, somebody. Yeah, I'ma move my body. Yeah, you gonna be somebody. You never know when you gonna need somebody. Hello,
Are you looking for your dream home? Well, if that's the case, you need to contact Joe Piccolo at Godwyn Realty, right here in New Orleans. Joe can put you in your dream home right away. Joe Piccolo and the folks over at Godwyn Realty put you in the house that you need. Even if you're looking to invest in some property, they'll do an excellent job with that as well. Contact Joe today at 504-251-8341. Again, that phone number is 504-251-8341. And also contact Joel at joel.godwynrealty.com. No need to dream anymore. Godwyn Realty will put you in the dream house of your reality. Hello, somebody.
Now New Orleans has a choice. Download the New Orleans Talk Network app for your mobile device or listen at www.neworleanstalknetwork.com.
Hello, somebody. It's your boy Marlon Favorite. And when I'm hungry, I like to make my way to Small Sliders, 1635 Barataria Boulevard, Montero, Louisiana. Simple on purpose. When I tell you their burgers are delicious, have some great sauce on them, I'm telling you, when you're just hungry and just need to grab a quick bite, this is the perfect place for you. Small Sliders. The customer service is nice. It's somewhere you can bring the family, hang out and chill, enjoy the atmosphere. Now I'm a big boy, so when I like to take my Small Sliders, I like to get the biggest smalls. Double patties, bacon, cheese, you name it. Just a delicious burger. And I like to top it off with my favorite, the cookies and cream milkshake. There are 3 delicious flavors: milkshake, chocolate, vanilla, and cookies and cream. Small Sliders. Simple on purpose. Y'all come on and slide through, baby. And let them know that you heard about them on Inside the Trenches with your boy Marlon Favorite. Watch out there now.
Listen up. Your customers, our listeners, could be hearing about your business right now. Yeah, right now. Don't miss out on the opportunity to advertise with NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com. Call our business department today at 504-475-4793 to hear about our great rates. NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com. We provide the people, you provide the business.
I the tiger, the heart of a champ.
Are you as excited as I am right now? I'm bucked up, baby. It's Inside the Trenches podcast. I'm in my happy space, man. We talking sports. We love doing entertainment on here. I'm just loving what we doing. Bringing our last segment to you. You know who gonna bring us on home? The home team, baby, the New Orleans Saints. As we're gonna get into this Saints news, there is some breaking news that dropped earlier, and it's not a big deal breaker for me, but Saints' new signee, defensive end Chase Young, has to go under neck surgery. He's going to probably get his surgery started probably in the next couple of days, but he is expected to sit out the entire training camp. So the question of the day, are you upset about that? Do you feel like the Saints put themselves in a position to get a guy that might not be 100% healthy for the season? It is a one-year contract, so if anything does happen, and you do have to clear medical, so I'm pretty sure this isn't something that popped up on the New Orleans Saints. They're just leaking the news right now that Chase Young does have to have neck surgery. So that is big news that broke earlier today. Remember, this is a $13 million contract with Chase Young, and he does need to sit out during training camp. From a player's perspective, because this guy is a veteran, it's not a big-time deal breaker for me that he has to sit out during training camp. It's not. It's really not. If he was a guy that wasn't proven, like if you're telling me that Trevor Penning has to sit out the entire training camp, if you tell me that Peyton Turner has to sit out an entire training camp, that changes the demographic. I mean, that changes the scope for me because these are guys that aren't proven. Chase Young, as we mentioned in our open segment, he's had 2 seasons where he's had 7.5 sacks. If you get anywhere between, I'm going to say 7, between 7 and 12 sacks consistently a year, you're doing good. I mean, we had arguably the greatest defensive tackle to ever play our game retire earlier this week in Aaron Donald, and he averaged 10 sacks a season. So, I mean, and he's one of the greatest to do it. I mean, you look at Reggie White, you look at Warren Sapp, guys that played the position. So I want to take a deeper look. This segment is all about taking a deeper look into the Saints' roster and then taking a look around the NFC South because these are the teams that we have to face 2 times a year. And this segment is also brought to you guys by Small Sliders, 1635 Barataria Boulevard in Montero. Talk to me now. Shouts out to MC Thick. The orange can, you can't miss it. Get you something to eat, some lunch. Let them know that you heard about them on Inside the Trenches podcast. Tell them you want the Big Fave special. Now, it's not on the menu, but they're going to know because I get the 2 Biggie burgers. Sometimes I add bacon, sometimes I don't. You know, right now we're in Lent season. And then I will get the Smalls Way fries. I like my fries extra crispy with the special sauce, and they call it the Smalls Way. They're going to know exactly what you're talking about. And I do get a milkshake. And I hit the treadmill after, and the weights too, just kind of. The Saints roster is shaping up. I like what they're doing in the receiving core. You're bringing a veteran wide receiver in Cedric Wilson. Cedric was good for them Cowboys. I know he did his thing with the Cowboys. Probably had his best year for the Cowboys, I want to say, in 2021. Then he spent some time in Miami. You still have Chris Olave. Behind him, you have Stanley Morgan, a nice route runner. You still have A.T. Perry and Shaheed. So they have, just in the receiving core alone, they still have 5 receivers, targeted receivers. Do you want to bring a rookie in? Possibly. I think it would only help things. The offensive line is still a major concern for me with the New Orleans Saints because I don't think James Hurst is your long-term deal, so you do have to look at that position. But then you're solid in the other spaces, right? You got to look at the right side solid, the center solid. What do you do with Trevor Penning? Do you keep him where he is? Do you move him around? This is going to be his 3rd season in the NFL.
So we want to see more production out of Trevor Penning. You bring him in 2022. Defensively, as we mentioned, Chase Young. You still have Nathan Shepard there. You still have Sanders, Khalid Sanders, Carl Granderson, who balled out. Tahoma Kapasanonga. I've butchered his name a little bit, but he's a veteran. He was drafted mid-round from Kansas City, won a Super Bowl there, so he has some winning experience. And Isaiah Foskey, who we still need to see. You bring in Willie Gay, restructure Tyron contract, Alontae Taylor. I'm good in terms of most of those guys. But when you look around the league and you look around particularly this division, we mentioned Atlanta, but I want to take a closer look at Tampa's roster. Like us, they have a decent amount of receivers. At any given moment, they can rotate in 5 receivers, 6 receivers. Mike Evans extended his deal. Chris Godwyn, Trey Palmer. These are guys that you're going to see speedsters, route runners, decent hands. At one point, it was looking like Chris Godwyn and Mike Evans was the best, one of the best receiving duos in the league. You still have Ryan Miller. You have Raheem Jarrett. I do think for them, you look at the tight end position. They have Cade Otton, but I would look at bringing another big target tight end in. As far as their offensive line goes, I do think that they might want to take just a little look at potentially drafting an offensive lineman. It doesn't have to be a high round pick. Now, defensively, they do lose Devin White. So I think when you look at this Tampa Bay team, they have to think, we got to get the best linebacker in this draft or the best available linebacker in free agency. It's important for them because we're used to, especially with the speed at the running back position, you still have Alvin Kamara, you still have Bijan Robinson that's in this division. So you want to have a linebacker that can go sideline to sideline. They have Levante Davis still on their roster. I think on the defensive line, particularly in the interior portion of the line, the boy looks straight for real though, because I think Vita V is just a stout, solid nose guard that demands a double team most of the time. Plus, he's a decent pass rusher. Aaron Donald just retired, and I think Khalil Kancey could potentially be the next Aaron Donald. He's out of Pitt. He's a really good pass rusher. I was hoping the Saints got him last year. I'm not disappointed with Brian Bruzy. You could go check my receipts. We did a draft preview here at New Orleans Talk Network, and Brian Bruzy's name came up. We knew that the Saints were going to go best available in that area, but the division rival was able to, get one of those guys. Some moves that were made, they bring in Jordan Whitehead, also Antoine Winfield to their strong safety position, to their safety positions, both free and strong. Jordan Whitefield is a bit young. He's 27 years old, so he's not super old. He does have 7 years experience playing. So you look at where he's been and what he was able to accomplish. This isn't his first go-around with Tampa. He's coming back. Of course, he went there back in 2018. So he's been here for a while. And then when you look at Antoine Winfield Jr., we're looking at Tampa Bay's defense. They go ahead and get him all sold up. So now you have your safety back solidified in your secondary. So I think when you look at Tampa overall, last year, this Tampa Bay team was able to go to Detroit and put up a fight in the playoffs. I thought Baker Mayfield fought his tail off in that game. I did mention to you guys Carolina's roster in our earlier segment. I think defensively they're right where they need to be in regards to interior linemen. You look at Brown, what he's able to do in bringing over Ashawn Robinson from New York. So they're not in a bad position at all. And then, of course, when you look at their offense, Terrence Marshall, second string
wide receiver, if he's your second string wide receiver, he has for sure hands. He's a guy that, in my opinion, could be competing for more playing time. I mean, if you look at them bringing him in as a as a second round draft pick in 2021, their offensive line, Damian Lewis, LSU, Robert Hunt, Miami, this should be a big upgrade for them as well. So we're going to continue to pay attention to free agency, look at the moves the Saints are making, Carolina, Atlanta, Tampa, and figure out how these teams are going to continue to shape up and who's going to be the king of the South, baby. Who's the king of the South? Will it be New Orleans, Tampa, Carolina? We shall see. Tampa Bay, who am missing? Atlanta. I don't think they want Atlanta to do it. But it's Inside the Trenches podcast, man. I want to thank y'all again for joining me. This 2-hour show. I'm having a great time. I'm here with my man Mike. Shouts out to Mike. Shouts out to Tarek on the ones and twos. Those guys are keeping the show rolling. We want to thank Hunt Palmer for coming over on the show. Y'all make sure y'all follow Hunt Palmer 88. He'll get y'all all the news, LSU baseball, LSU basketball, of course, football. Hunt Palmer, want to thank him. Want to thank all of our sponsors. Want to thank Small Slider, 1635 Barataria Boulevard, Marrero. We want to thank UPT Sports Social. We want to thank Godwyn Realty. We want to thank Crown Car Wash for all that they do for the show. Conquer Sports, Montero Motors. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Is Inside the Trenches podcast, baby. If y'all don't remember anything we talked about today, remember this. God is love. We'll be back. New Orleans Talk Network, ESPN New Orleans. Hello, somebody.
When you pass that, sis looking right in those jeans. You're moving fast.